Yeah. GTA 6 footage has been leaked onto the internet, likely years before the game was ever planned to be released, let alone be shown to the public. It seems there are a lot of people who are struggling to understand that before a game ships, it is in a constant state of change. And I just want to make this as clear as possible. Video games are very hard to make. They also take a long time to make. They are also very expensive to make. They need to meet shareholder, publisher, journalist, and player expectations. Developers big and small literally cannot afford to put out a bad product. From concept to completion, a game takes hundreds of thousands of hours of work from hundreds, or in Rockstar's case, thousands of employees. A game looks vastly different at every point in development. And there's just one more thing I think that people don't really seem to understand. It is a miracle that most games are ever released at all. So, what game are you gonna make? This, along with literally thousands of other decisions, need to be made before true development begins. What kind of game are we making? 2D or 3D? What are the themes? What are the gameplay mechanics? The art style? The setting? What is the story being told? What about the types of characters, enemies, single player, multiplayer, PC, console? What is the target audience? Even after all of these decisions are made, if there is a publisher and a lot of money involved, it needs to be pitched and approved. This game could be something that you literally spend the next several years or longer making, and it better be worth it because your livelihood can depend on it. Indie games need to be a standout in a crowded market to recoup development costs, and stranger things have happened than a studio shutting down or being restructured after a publisher is disappointed in sales. Or, it could also be rejected immediately. So the whole process must be restarted or reworked. If accepted, all of the plans will probably still change along the way anyway. Even with approval after months of concepts, writing, and testing, sometimes the idea just isn't good enough. Ever thought about games that were hyped for years and then come out unfinished or just straight up not good? Or what about the games that never see the light of day? Sometimes, months, or even years are literally thrown away in an attempt to make a better game or a game better. Maybe after months of work, the game gets canceled entirely, is scrapped, and not only has months of work been lost, but you can never talk about any of the ideas or cool things you worked on again because of an NDA. Designers, programmers, artists, writers, sound designers, QA, directors, actors, and more on all AAA games work tirelessly to make these things come to light. Each of these different positions can be broken down into more specific tasks, especially when working on a game as massive as GTA. Within design, there can be level designers, gameplay designers, economy designers, combat designers, quest designers, etc. Then there can be programmers specifically dedicated to menus, AI, gameplay, controls, quests, and the list goes on and on and on. Usually games start with a prototype. They are the simplest form of a game, and they take the basic mechanics of the game concept without any art assets, full levels, sound or music, story, or really anything other than basic gameplay. At the beginning, the gameplay may consist of a gray cube exploring a world of other gray cubes. Sometimes the developer will build a small playground to move around in. Sometimes there are paper prototypes that allow basic ideas to be tested before any time is spent in the game engine. Some studios may say gameplay is king, where first and foremost the game needs to be fun to play before anything else is made. This is a very Nintendo-like thought process. Some studios need a story to be fleshed out to know where the game is headed. For example, Red Dead Redemption 2's script is said to have been 2,000 pages long, meaning 2,000 pages were written collaboratively, storyboarded, edited, and changed time and time again. Each scene was carefully scrutinized over by a team of writers and directors and designers attempting to decide if this character would say that line. Do we want the story to head in that direction? How will this play out? Now think about games where there are branching dialogue trees and stories with multiple endings. RPGs where different characters can die and lines need to be written and recorded and animated for every possible outcome. Sound designers need to know what the game will sound like. What emotions need to be felt? Are their characters heavy and bulky like Gears of War? Or will they sound more realistic? Are there aliens that need unnatural and otherworldly sounds? Designers need to plan levels, mechanics, game feel, what controls will be used, what is the minute-to-minute gameplay like, where will the player encounter enemies, does the pacing allow time for characters to speak or the player to breathe? What about the player's skills and experience points? How do you calculate their experience gain, or their leveling up? What are the maths involved? Trying to come up with equations like that is no simple task. All of these things need planning within huge groups of developers all working in unison with the same vision to avoid wasting any time, work, or money. If you think a lack of communication makes your job difficult, then imagine the impact on development of not communicating within a game studio of over 1,000 people. And after all of these things we've discussed, the true development process hasn't even really started yet. So now we entered the production phase. Thousands of tiny decisions have been made leading towards actual development, the team has a unified vision, and everyone is working towards the same goal. Characters that were once a concept now need to be taken to full 3D, starting with a completely blank canvas. Animations need to be planned, skeletons attached to models and rigged, levels need to begin in gray box so gameplay can be tested with available mechanics. Artists can prepare building assets, and yes, everything in the game needs to be made. Meanwhile, programmers are getting gameplay in place, tweaking move speeds, jump heights, animation length, building systems to allow rendering of massive open worlds, or hundreds of characters on screen without sending your PC or Xbox or PS5 to outer space like a missile with the heat that's generated from it. And, do you ever think about it? Who do you think made those huge-ass horse shits and dicks in Red Dead? Someone made all that too. Somebody sat at their desk for probably weeks and crafted that horse shit to make it look right so people would laugh and think it was funny and wouldn't complain that the horses weren't realistic. And you might be thinking, oh, all of this stuff is just working out and production is moving along. Oh, you sweet, naive summer child. You thought that coding was easy? You thought you could do all of this and everything would just work the first time? Good one. Someone makes a character jump and suddenly the camera breaks. Someone implemented a new AI script and suddenly the game crashes when it loads up, but only on certain people's PCs in the office. If the player jumps at a certain wall, they go right through and can leave the map. The sound of footsteps is too loud and also playing when the character shoots. How does that even happen? The controls are awful based on playtest feedback and need to be reworked. A level feels too big and needs to be adjusted. The writers just decided to change some lines of dialogue which now need to be re-recorded. The player character is T-posing. There's a body that phase shifts into another dimension and duplicates 400 times, eventually crashing the game. And this is normal, everyday stuff that developers run into. I'm not even kidding. So now say you're a designer and suddenly a great idea has struck you. You work on the idea and get it working. You pitch it and it's approved. Instantly, new animations and new assets need to be created. Levels need to be changed to introduce this new mechanic. The script needs to be changed to have the character speak when they find this item. New tutorials need to be made. New UI needs to be created. New sound effects need to be made. Controls need to be added. And now all of a sudden, the player needs an inventory system. All of this is just for one simple idea. So here's the thing. There is no rulebook that applies to every game's design or how things should be implemented into the game. Ideas can be a huge risk because something that sounds good on paper may end up being a total waste of time. Environment artists or level designers must place each and every asset in a completed level, and this includes trash on the floor, chairs, benches, rubble, a tree, a bush, every piece of concrete for the sidewalk in GTA you're walking on or the railroad tracks the train rides on. Every light was added. The intensity, brightness, light angle, shadows, color, and any flickering were all carefully tuned to look as natural to the level or scene as possible. Someone in the studio inevitably will spend weeks or months going through fonts, trying to find the right font for menus, the HUD, subtitles, tutorials, and the credits. Have you ever played a game and thought, wow, this font looks terrible? No, that's probably because it doesn't happen that often, because people want the game to look good. All the while, QA tests for bugs and issues that need to be fixed will be found. And every time one is fixed, 30 more take its place, and it will never stop, so don't even ask. And with that being said, a lot of people like to blame QA for the game having too many bugs at ship, but this is just not the case. There are many examples of studios whose QA teams have found bugs and logged them for the developers who just don't have enough time to fix the game. The publisher is pushing a release date and they need to make that deadline. Whew, boy. So eventually, the game will reach alpha build status. Alpha just ultimately means that the game is feature complete. That means that the game is playable, but doesn't necessarily play well, have all the art or all the sounds or animations or levels, and will contain plenty of bugs. It will have balance and difficulty issues, and will be missing just about all of the final touches and polish that you can expect from a finished product. Development is very far along, but it's still nowhere near done either. And then you get to beta. Beta is the next milestone before shipping, where the game is content complete. This means that the game is fully playable, everything is in the game technically, but that doesn't mean that it's ready to go. Tweaks from big to small in all areas of the game, including gameplay, art, balance, bugs, levels, sounds, AI, difficulty, combat encounters, could all be changed before launch. This final period before ship is for making the game the best that it can be. Crunching, and we've all heard about crunching, which happens usually right before the game is getting ready to ship, which means even after all those years of hard work, the game's still really not done. But eventually it gets to that point. The game is ready to ship. It must be submitted for approval for publishing on stores like Sony, Microsoft's, Nintendo's, or Steam. Is it done? Probably not. Are all of the bugs fixed? Never will be. Sure, the game has been submitted, years of hard work, dedication, crunch, and literal tears are behind you, but your work really isn't done. There will be a day one patch fixing additional problems that weren't fixed before going gold. There will be additional content with updates and DLCs or a battle pass to keep up with. The job is never done. Alright, so I've barely scraped the surface of the amount of work, detail, and effort that goes into a video game. Every asset, line of code, sound, particle, and decision made is by a team of dedicated and passionate developers that turn an empty project into a miraculous piece of art meant to entertain, immerse, and engage players all over the world. Game developers do not want to ship a bad game, or an unfinished game, nor do they want you to see early gameplay from an unfinished part of a project never intended for outside eyes, stolen by a hacker just so people can tell them that they're an absolute piece of shit loser who is garbage at their job. Maybe reserve your harsh critical judgment for game developers. Maybe cut them some slack, and maybe be grateful that these games are in such passionate, hardworking, and talented hands long before you even hear whispers of a game you want existing. Alright, sheesh. Hopefully that gave you a little more insight into the making of a game. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you could, please like and subscribe. It would help me to continue to make more videos like this. Have a great day, and God bless, my dudes.